Welcome to Magic Academy podcast. Today with us is Barbara. She is the founder of Nomadic School of Wonder, a wonder making agency that helps curate experiences that activate our sense of awe, curiosity, connecting human beings with nature, and build new, forward thinking, inclusive cultures at the end of the experience. And her work has been featured by Susan in her book, Your Brains on Art, and also in Forbes magazine about wonder making and how that can help businesses prosper in the coming decades. So welcome, Barbara, to our podcast. I'm so grateful to have you.
Thank you, Gianni. It's so nice to be here with you. Yeah, I always enjoy our conversations.
Thank you. Me too. So let's start with our first question. Our audience probably have read about you across different media outlets. Something special about this space. We will be curious to hear from you to kind of introduce yourself in a unique way that nobody else has heard about.
Okay, well, what first
Yet.
comes to mind is I'm known as Mama Baba to my cat and my dog. So that's probably one of the most unique titles and roles that I play is being fur baby mommy. And then the other thing is I'm just like just a human that's just trying to put some more love and wonder into the world and doing that through this organization that we call the Nomadic School of Wonder. And just trying to remind myself and others of our connection to the natural world and the on nature. So somehow that all connects the animal, plant, and wonder world.
Because everybody's living on this planet Earth, and humans and other animals are just coexisting in this space anyway. So it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
I think that we often forget that perspective, right? It becomes a little, humans have become a little egocentric when it comes to like what matters most. And I think designing with all of the ecosystem in mind is a challenge and also a great privilege. So
It's beautiful. When we step out of our house into the neighborhood, the animals that we see are squirrels, rabbits, and people's dogs and cats, birds. So we're surrounded by those animals, and it's very inspiring to be reminded that whenever we design an experience, we need to think about the animals, the nature that's around us, because we are living and breathing and being supported by this delicate ecosystem.
yes, and it's fun. Like it's fun to actually we do a lot of design in nature itself. And it's so much fun because you're co-creating with redwood trees in Santa Cruz, California, or you're co-creating in Hawaii with spinner dolphins, right? So it's really, or with our wild horses, whether it's in Utah with wind horse relations that we work with there, or here in Santa Fe with a chance of a lifetime sanctuary. So it's just it to design with the alive world makes everything more alive.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful. And that ties to kind of the founding stories behind the Nomadic School of Wonder. So what inspired you to start this venture? What is the mission and vision behind it?
Well, what
Happy
happened
to
is,
hear.
what happened is that I had the great privilege of being with those closest to me in their last weeks and months of life on Earth, and I just noticed that there was an aliveness that people had when they knew that they were going to have many more days on the planet. And I thought, well, why does it take something like coming to the end of our life to wake us up like that? So I really was looking at, well, how can I contribute to designing experiences that bring us more alive overall, right? And how can we feel so it was really, how can I capture that feeling, like what it's like when you are with people who only have so much time on the planet. There's a hyper presence, there's a hyper awareness, there's an expanded sense of possibility,
Mm.
and it brings you fully into the moment and into your body. So what I've been doing is, with the traveling troupe of wonder makers, we call them wonder makers and artists, is that we've been designing experiences that hopefully bring us more alive and connect us with nature, art, community, and play. So that's where it really
Mm.
came from. And it's almost 9 years now that we've been doing this. And we purposely wanted to have it be on like a slow growth, like a slow growth forest, rather than let's create this, scale it. We really wanted it to emerge the way it wanted to emerge. And now we have a really good sense of what it is and what we can offer to people. And our mission is pretty simple. It's just to create more wonder and connection in the world. And we do that through play in particular, and we do that through bringing people into nature, and we do that through co-creating with people, not necessarily having everything prescribed beforehand, but inviting people to play with us and to co-create with us, and then together see what emerges. And it takes a lot of letting go of control to do that, but it's a ton of fun because we never know how things are going to end either.
Open-ended.
Very open-ended,
Open-ended
but it always
experience.
seems to land where it needs to land. So yeah.
Beautiful. What is wonder exactly? How do we define, how do we start to understand the concept of wonder?
Well, it's interesting. When people ask me that, I actually say that I don't define it for people purposefully, because I really believe in, like, let's give people a direct experience of wonder. And when I say that word wonder to you, I'm curious as to what it conjures for you, because it conjures different things for different people. But I do know that when we're in a state of wonder, we all recognize, oh, I'm in a state of wonder, or I'm in a state of awe. So I'm curious I don't mean to just turn this around on you, your question, but I'm
Mm.
curious to hear how you define wonder for yourself.
It's a mix of feelings first. So maybe surprise, happy, curious, and want to know more, and feel all of a sudden the world is so big and I'm just so tiny. And all
That's
of a
beautiful.
sudden,
Yeah, please go on.
and all of a sudden, um, all the stress are relieved. A lot of things that I thought mean something doesn't really matter, and it feels like a big hug from the universe, and letting me opening my eyes to things, and feel peace, and feel hopeful. I feel hope wanted to be part of it. Feel a sense of purpose.
Hmm.
Why am I here? I could be anywhere, but why am I here on this planet Earth, on this time? There must be something behind my existence because the world is so big. Why am I here?
That's incredible. So you had no problem kind of describing the feeling of wonder and the sense of wonder, right? And I think it's so much. And sometimes when we put like a sentence to it, I feel like it limits it. So for me, it is about that. People often report feeling kind of small compared to the bigness of life. They also refer to it often as being in the presence of mystery. And I can relate
Hmm.
to that, like feeling like you're, um, yeah, that there's something bigger, there's a mysterious something that you're in the presence of, and that you perhaps aren't really sure where that origin is or what it's about, but you know that you like it and you like
Like,
being in that space. And you just described it. We just came back from a wild horse adventure, and you so described what it was like this weekend to be with these horses that were born in the wild, and to feel this deep sense of reverence and wonder and awe and presence, deep presence, and I think it's very accessible to us. I think that we think it's something way out there, but if you just recall a moment of wonder, let's say from your childhood or from a recent memory of wonder, you literally are conjuring that feeling, and you literally are having, I'm not a neuroscientist, I just work with them, but you are then conjuring the same kinds of expansive perception that you would have if you were in a state of wonder by just tapping into memory of that wonder. That's what I just experienced you go through.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I think I'm not a neuroscientist either, but I think from a conceptual perspective, maybe there are some like neural pathways that's being activated maybe on a much massive scope than compared to when we learn something and it's just very it's cognitive based connection. Maybe it's like a holistic, a whole brain connection. We should ask Bo
Yeah, we'll ask
to
we'll ask
confirm.
neuroscientist Bo Lotto, who studied wonder very deeply and who we collaborate with. But I do feel like it does somehow connect the dots. That's how I would put it, like connect the dots and at the same time expand, which I have confirmed with him. It expands our perception. And it expands. We might have a notion that, like, let's say we're trying to problem solve or something. We might have a notion that is about like this, and then if we actually are in it, if we have an experience of wonder and we're invited into experience of wonder, it really expands out those possible solutions that we would have. We just would have more choices of what might be a possible solution. And also, if you add play in there, then we're more likely to really like generate a new idea, because play is the way that we safely enter the unknown, that we welcome the unknown. Otherwise, we're like a little afraid of the unknown. So when you talk with Bo, you'll get the big download on that. But I see it, and then we also measure it. We measure it with Bo does neuroscience perceptual awareness tests sometimes with our corporate groups, and we actually study what happens before, during, and after an experience of wonder and play with us. And it's off the charts. It is off the charts in terms of the amount of depth of connection, risk taking, good risk taking, like creative risk taking, the sense of sort of adventure and courage that people have, and probably in many ways the sense of connection to one another. This idea of us and them gets more blurred when you're in a state of wonder.
That's beautiful. And you're talking about this like wonder making. So for each of the experience that you curate and create, what is your approach of actually creating and making a space that can activate wonder?
It's kind of pretty simple. Again, I'm not trying to totally simplify it, but it really is about, I think good experience design and good wonder making is good party planning, good hosting, right? How do you gather people together with an intention? How do you invite them to, how do you connect them, and how do you invite them to play with you? How do you create the conditions for wonder to reveal itself? Often we'll set our experiences in nature, but not always, but somehow the natural world is there. Sometimes we will invite people literally to play with us. So some of our artists might even be in costume and invite people to play. We'll also invite people to make things with us. That's the wonder making. Like I said, we're going to have a celebration. We did this one project in the Redwoods with our friend Ivy Ross's Google hardware design team. And we made food together, we made craft together, we made song together, we made dance together. We made all sorts of we made a structure to actually do our kind of forest celebration in. We made a structure out of tree branches, and we just all rolled up our sleeves and made a celebration together. And then we sort of turn it over to the participants to create that. So the joke that we have is like, often our artists and ourselves were known as the wonder makers, but we were all wonder makers. So how do we invite you to play, and then really show you your own presence and essence and power to create wonder wherever you go and in your life. So uh, yeah, I would say it's like nature designing for co-creation, designing for emergence, designing for aliveness, and all those things mean letting go of control. The more we kind of create a container, like we have a solid container. It's not like chaos, right? A solid container. But then you actually invite the unknown into the process itself. And we, like I said, we never really know where the third act is going of our experiences. And that's perfectly fine. And everybody gets a sense that it's alive, that it's not a canned experience. It's not like the group that just came in before you is going to have the same experience. No, it's a completely different experience. So it allows us to design for surprise, for ourselves to be as surprised as participants are.
It's beautiful. And when you are facilitating this space where people can play safely as adults, I'm curious, like people will say, when we are kids, it's just easier for us to play. It's just natural. And for adults, a little bit much tougher actually. So how is there a difference between childlike play versus adult-like play? Or are they the same thing? We're just activating their childlike sense of play.
It might be the
Or they're
latter.
different.
It's different because as we grow up, we actually, have a harder time playing. So it is different in the sense of ease. But if you think about it, and that's why I often will have people conjure moments of wonder from their childhood, because it actually, I think, resides in us as a sense memory, right? Like whether we'd like to bounce
Sense
a
memory.
ball, or whether we'd like to skip rope, or whether we'd like to make things or make believe, or whatever it might be. So I joke that we're kind of like kindergarten for adults, or
Mhm.
Waldorf for adults. We it seems crazy that we have to do that, but I think as adults we forget how to play, how to just simply play. But it's in us, and so when we invite people to do that, it doesn't take a lot, and we do it in such a way that it's low pressure. Like if you don't want to play, great, that's fine. But ultimately, people are having so much fun that even the person who's on the sidelines will come and play with us. And we make it a real, like, we have a, a sense of humor about what we do, right? And I've worked in the personal development, personal growth world for years. And I think that there's a sense that the only way that you grow is through pain and suffering. And that may be so on some level, but I actually think we really can grow and expand through laughter, through play, through a sense of silliness. And so that in some ways, that's kind of a little bit of my own personal mission, is to, people think that they have to like figure things out or think harder, or, kind of like apply pressure. And actually what we need to do is often the opposite, is that we need to actually zoom out a little bit. We need to do something that is not right on point, and then come back to that problem, or that thing we're trying to figure out, right? We've all had this. We go for walks or something, and then that idea comes to us, right? We take a shower and that idea comes to us. Where if we're just trying to figure it out, I know for me, whenever I catch myself saying, I have to figure this out, I'm like, no, actually, you need to actually expand, because figuring it out sometimes turns into like a very constricted point of view. And what I try to do is expand what's possible. So I like to bring people into their imaginations too. I joke that wonder and the imagination are one of the most generative tools on the planet. When talking about
Mm.
AI and everything else, we have this imagination that we walk around with, and we rarely tap into it. We're rarely asked to tap into it. We're rarely asked to use our imagination to imagine another way, or another way of doing something in the world. And so I will write fairy tales with groups of people. And at first they're like, fairy tales, I don't know how to write a fairy tale. But then they start writing it and they don't think too much about it. And it always brings some sort of wisdom into whatever they're trying to envision in the future. So, yeah, I just feel like there's these tools, again, that we're so conditioned that the tool has to be outside of ourselves, that it has to be, technology or artificial intelligence. And I think there's a place for that. But really, um, the more that we can tap into this inner wonder well of imagination, the more likely I think we'll be more resourceful for what the future holds for us and our communities.
Mm. That's beautiful. And I remember in our first conversation, you were talking about like one strategy that you help people to activate the childlike wonder is to ask them what they like to do and also adding a movement.
Right. So a few of our wonder makers, I remember when I first met Ivy Ross, who is the vice president of design for hardware at Google. I think she asked me that. What did you like to play, Barb, as a 10-year-old? Right. She used to be on the on the board of the Institute of Play. So she always connected people's play life when they were kids to their work life, like where they feel the most connected. And then another artist and wonder maker that we work with, Elizabeth Yoakum, she also conjures sort of what would you like to play as a child, and then make that movement and offer that movement up. And again, back to the sense memory. So what did you like to play as a
So
child? What did you like to play as a child, Gian?
I like to get our get kids from the neighbors together and do a role play.
Role
Like
play, like a show,
doctors and patients, and would also put up like a show, so people will practice singing, practice dancing, and we'll get them together, gather the audience, our parents
right?
and
Put on a show, right?
relatives, and put up a show and make people happy, collaboration, and
There's nothing better
that's
than
kind
that,
of
right? Yeah, just like, getting your friends together, goofing around, playing, making things up, and then sharing that with people. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. When I was a kid, I hosted, or I created a backyard carnival for a local charity. And I just love this idea that I could create play and then offer it to the neighborhood, and also raise money for a local charity. And in many ways, that's what I'm still doing with the Nomadic School of Wonder, because all of our experiences benefit local community partners, whether it be a horse sanctuary, a circus art school, or a scholarship, an artist scholarship. They all benefit local. So it's just funny. Sometimes you feel like you've come so far, and you realize you've just kind of gone back to the origin story of what brought you most alive, right? So,
yeah.
so I'm
And
kind of
that's
doing the
your
same thing.
yeah, on a different level. So it's
Yeah,
kind of
just
like
50
doing
years
the
later. Yeah, just 50 years later. Yeah, yeah.
oh, beautiful. And when we are creating the sense of wonder, what role do you think culture play? And first, how do you perceive culture? And the sense of wonder feels like very personal. So it really there's a lot of context that people people bring a lot of context and prior experiences into this experience. So what role do you think culture play, and how do you define culture from your perspective?
Yeah, the way that we approach kind of co-creating with cultures and diverse cultures is that we really believe in a sense of place and community, right? We really like to we travel in different places in the world, often very remote places, and we will co-create with the local community, and that will mean intergenerational, as diverse community as possible, and we will literally co-create these experiences together. Often they're led by local artists, right? But we then will invite everybody from the community to come, like you were talking about, like come and experience our show, that we just co-created with our friends here. We'll do that with the local town and we'll invite them all to come. So for us, it's like, how do we respect local culture? How do we respect and learn from uh, humans that have lived in a place for a long time, and who understand um, landscape and belonging in a different way than perhaps we do. And then how do we invite them to play, with us? And it's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of places that we would like to go and co-create. But it's we the way that we look at it is really on a more personal level, meaning like we go back to these small towns over and over again. So we create relationship with local communities and local people from very diverse cultures. So it's like it's the way that it's not so much like a mental construct for us. It's really a personal, like how do we create connection? And that to me is, I think, one of my most favorite things that we get to do is we just I just got back last night from a horse rescue sanctuary. They don't like to call themselves that, but they're a place that takes care of wild horses that were born in the wild. And we probably this is our eighth time going to this small town in Utah and doing this. And our relationship just deepens, and our sense of gratitude deepens, and our laughter expands. And not only do we have these relationships with the humans, but in this case, we have ongoing relationship where we're actually recognized when we go back to the horse herd and individual horses that we know and we've known over time. So it's just getting to know. It's just really spending the time, taking the time to know people and to share stories. And we do one of these things with one of our wonder makers, Michael Cass, where we do community story circles. So we invite everybody, whether it's for hot chocolate or whatever time of year, we're some sort of beverage and some little snack. And maybe 100 people from the community will come. We do this in Fogo Island in Finland. And people will share stories. He'll ask them to write a little bit about something, some sort of prompt, whatever the theme is, like when did you feel a sense of belonging? When did you last feel a sense of belonging? People write a little bit, and then they just pair off into groups of 5 or 6, and they share stories with each other. And it's probably one of my favorite things that we do because it's just it's goosebumpy all around, and there's people from all different walks of life with all different experiences that are just listening to each other tell these stories, and they're also then exchange, and then some of our artists or us, will also be telling the stories in these circles, and we walk away from that um, having a deeper sense of connection with the local community and the people who make up that place than we would if we were just to um, visit a place and perhaps learn from them, but to really have an exchange and a story exchange is, again, one of my favorite things to do. Gives me goosebumps each time. And I look around, I often am like looking around and seeing what's happening. And that to me is what community making is. It's about, you know, being able to connect over stories and learn from each other and be blown away by um, by the lives that we've all led and the stories that come out of us. Sometimes we're also surprised by the stories that come out of us around that. So it's very simple, you know, like it's a simple way of connecting, but I think it's a very powerful and deep way of connecting.
Hmm.
Can you
Yeah,
imagine
and when
like if we
we're
did, yeah, if we did that in companies, you know, if we actually spent some time actually sharing stories with each other around a theme or a topic, it just completely changes, shifts the dynamic. People are laughing, people are crying, people are connecting, they're listening, and then their whole body language shifts in relationship to, you know, the other.
Mm. And that kind of brings in the culture perspective because the story is the whenever we share the story, it's automatically embedded in whatever level of culture that's in there. Beautiful.
It is, yeah. So we
Wonder
just,
maybe through story sharing.
yeah, that Michael calls them story circles,
Story
and we've done
circles.
them all over the world, and in backyard, and you know, the edge of the earth, and Fogo Island, and all the different places, and they never fail to, um, they never fail you know, to create wonder for the circle. It's pretty beautiful.
Beautiful. Feels like I'm just like living through one of the sessions and hearing your stories and experiencing things and life through your perspective, and I was experiencing a moment of wonder when I was
Good.
listening to your stories and approach.
Good. It's that easy though. It's easy enough. It's as easy of, you know, people often feel like it's something that they have to go to the ends of the earth to experience, but it's as simple as closing your eyes and remembering a moment that you felt a sense of wonder. And then just really going into that memory with all your senses and really being able to re experience it. And I don't know, it's probably some sort of daily practice that I think could have a big benefit for people.
Story circles. Are you doing virtual story circles?
Yeah, we've done virtual story circles. Yeah, we'll do one. We'll make sure that we do one with you, Gianni. Yeah, we do virtual
Yeah.
story circles. We did a number of them during the height of the pandemic. We did a number of them, and they were, needless to say, very therapeutic for people.
Yeah, because sometimes people are like, oh, I do meditation, but there's limitation to meditation. It's like a very isolating, it's just you in the space and your brain zones out all the time. But if you're talking about stories, it's just so easy to get engaged and it's active, it's communal. Beautiful.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to come experience that with us, either virtually or in person.
Um,
Yeah, you're raising your hand. I see.
yes. So as we move kind of looking into the future, and you mentioned about all the technologies will come, like some words has already arrived, generative AI, extended realities, human machine interactions, and biometrics. How do you see the future could possibly evolve with alongside those emerging technologies?
Well, it's funny because, you know, I come from a background of creative invention meets emerging technologies, and how do we create something new from that? So I've spent my entire career in emerging technologies, and I work in it now as well. But I also don't feel, I'm not as frightened about emerging technologies, I think, as a lot of people have expressed. And I'm also not, I don't feel threatened by emerging technologies as well. You know, I think so much of it is how do we nourish our imaginations and our ability to invent the new. And then how does technology help us support that? But I don't think, to me, nothing is going to really replace nature, being in nature for me. Nothing's going to replace it. That's what we have to do, everything we can to regenerate nature. And in terms of AI, in terms of, um, generative technologies, I think there's a place, and hopefully they will give us more opportunity to dream and to imagine and to create. But I don't think, and I think they can surprise us and they can delight us at this stage. But I also think that there's a lack of energy and essence that I get from being with, I'm looking at a tree outside my window, from a tree or from an animal than I do from a screen and technology. So I think we have a ways to go. But I kind of feel like the more technology takes up our brain space on a daily basis and our attention, the more people are going to need experiences like what we offer for the Nomadic School of Wonder, which really help, I think, to balance our brains and expand what we think is possible, and also just to remind us that we are part of this larger ecosystem called the natural world. So I'm not, it's like I don't have the same fear that a lot of people have about technology. I've always worked in technology, and I just see it as another tool to help us. It's so much about how we use it and to help us create a better world for all of us. How can we do that?
Yeah. How can technology empower humanities moving into
Yeah,
the
and I would
next
say even,
decades?
I'm sorry I didn't mean to interrupt you, Gianni, but I got excited about that, which is how can we make it better for all of us, as designer Bruce Mal says, for all of life. How can we design it for, how can we use it to design a better life for all of us? I think sometimes even humanity can be a little too human-centered, right? I used to
All
teach
of us. Yeah.
I used to
Like
teach
the
human-centered
animals.
design. Yeah, I used to teach human-centered design, and I can't teach it anymore because we were very successful as designing for humans. And now we have to be successful for designing for all of life.
All of life-centered design.
Yeah, that's what designer Bruce Mal talks about a lot, versus human-centered, but all life design.
All life design.
Yeah, something like that. But you get what I'm talking about. Designing for all of life.
Being considerate, inclusive, not from a human perspective, but from the bigger ecosystem perspective.
Right, because that's the success of designing for humans is what has gotten us into this mess that we're in with our environment, right? Like we've designed an environment for humans that doesn't work for our planet often. It doesn't work for the natural world. So how can we, it's just a bigger design challenge. I have faith that we will find a way through this, but we definitely have created it, so it's ours to clean up.
Yeah. And you mentioned, so for our audience who wanted to continuously explore the topic or this kind of direction of movement, what are some innovative startups that you follow or thought leaders that you follow? You mentioned a few of them. Were there any particular ones that you would like us to pay attention to or follow or learn from?
Yeah, well, we talked about one of our collaborators, the neuroscientist Bo Lotto, and his lab of
Oh,
misfits. They're always up to good and interesting experiments in the world, and we do a lot of them with them. There's also, I mentioned Ivy Ross and Susan McSalmon, who wrote the book Your Brain on Art. And that's a wonderful book and just a movement that started about what happens to our brains when we, let's say, doodle for 20 minutes a day. What is the impact on our lives? So I love that idea of microdosing art. There's also there's also Dacher Keltner's book on awe, which is another wonderful. He's been doing he and the Good Science Center in Berkeley have been doing some of the early, for the last 20 years, we've been tracking what they've been doing in terms of studying awe. So that's another one. And then there's just this wonderful artist that we work with here in Galisteo by the name of Judy Tuwalitsdiwa. And she's in her early 80s and she has a big TikTok following now. She's known as Gma Judy on TikTok. And she is just basically being Judy. She's one of the most wonderful teachers of life and art. And if you are on TikTok, follow Gma Judy. She has like 120,000 followers. And she's just reminding people about the creativity that's inside of them and ways to access that and ways to kind of reduce the critical mind and expand their sense of play and creativity. So she's probably one of my biggest influences is Judy Tuwalitsdiwa.
Beautiful. So for our audience out there, definitely follow those folks, and some of them will also try to invite them to share their perspective on this podcast. So I think as we move into our next phase of conversation, the magic piece, I would like to do a quick recap for our audience so far. We've talked about Barbara's story of how she founded the Nomadic School of Wonder, the mission, the vision, and how she goes about curating spaces that actually make wonders. And we explore the concept of what do you mean exactly by, when you speak wonder, what does that mean? And we also talk about some strategies that people can use to curate a sense of wonder in their own space through a communal space. We also explored the role that culture plays and how story sharing is a streamlined way of integrating human experiences and cultures into building more authentic and connected communities. We also explore the topics of emerging technologies and how that could play in the future of wonder making, and what are some challenges and risks that we need to pay attention to. So
That was a
so
lot.
far,
We talked
that's
about
a
all that.
lot. We talked a
Yeah.
lot. Hey, that's
Yeah.
great. So let's talk about the magic piece then. So
Okay.
Barbara,
Tell
when
me.
you were 11,
Yeah.
when you were 11 or 14 years old, what did you enjoy doing?
Well, I
And
think
time disappeared.
I think I liked play. I really liked almost every aspect of play. I was a very embodied player as a kid, and there was always a game of some kind happening on our block, right? I grew up in the 70s and in South Florida, and felt like you could just walk out your front door and somebody was playing a game. And so you could just start playing. Maybe somebody's playing something down the street. There's some sort of ball game happening, kickball or something, and right in front of the house. So I think what I loved is being in my body and playing with other people in a variety of different ways, versus just playing on my own. I think I love the communal playing.
Feels like you're part of the community and belonging, and people are collaborating.
Yeah, we just made things
beautiful
up. Sometimes we
feeling.
just make games up too,
Yeah,
And that was kind of,
inventing.
yeah, like what you were doing with your friends and shows. Like it's just fun to make things up too when you're playing games.
Yeah, I think that's one of the talent of being a human, is that we imagine, we make things up, and we explore, and that's why we evolve.
That's how
We're
we
not the
evolve,
strongest
right?
species, yeah,
Yeah.
but we evolve. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
we
great way of
play and
putting
we
it.
evolve. Nice.
Yeah.
Out of all that beautiful experiences, and I know everybody goes through some sort of challenges here, there, major ones, continuously, micro challenges. So for you, was there any particular challenge that you have to experience that helped shape who you are as of now, 2024?
There's so many that I'm not sure where to
Truly.
start. But I would say that a consistent challenge, I think, especially when I feel very committed to something like I am with the Nomadic School of Wonder, is a belief that other people will recognize that and that it will, you know, grow at whatever pace it needs to grow at, but that it's like keeping the faith, I think, is sometimes the challenge, right? It's like, how do you
Mm,
keep the faith in the face of so many challenges, right? These days, everybody's peddling something out in the world. And you're like, hey, this is our lemonade stand. We're peddling wonder. um, so I feel like that it's like persistence, keeping the faith, a deep belief in what you're doing, however big or small or how much you're doing it, is that if you really feel a sense that this is what you're meant to be doing in the world, then do it as often and as much as you can. And then eventually, other people pick up on what you're doing and then they want to play with you
mm,
and it evolves and you create community. I mean, I think I've community often takes a little bit of time to create, right? In the world of
yeah.
marketing, it's a sense that community can be created overnight, but it takes time and it takes shared experience. And so for me, it's like keeping the faith and remembering to put yourself in your own kind of nomadic school of wonder as much as you created for other people. So staying inspired along the way. And there's been so many challenges, through the years. Um, but it's also made me more creative and resilient to face those challenges and to um, keep plugging away. And sleep helps, good night's sleep helps to kind of
Mm.
reframe the next day. Um, yeah, but I think it's like, how do you keep the faith?
How do you keep the faith? Like, what is something that you do daily that helps you to stay in that faith?
I, I, we do these sensory wonder walks, and I do them personally, where I just take a walk out my front door, sometimes with my dog, sometimes on my own, and just pay attention to my senses and pay attention and really be present and witness, listen for the birds, witness all the different shades of green that I'm seeing now here in spring. And it sounds like kind of cornball, but it's like being present to and going on a walk. I always come back with an expanded sense of what's possible. And yeah, it just feels good. Moving, you know.
Yeah.
And then probably some sort of daily creative practice, whatever that might be, whether it's writing or drawing or sketching or doodling. I think all of those things really help to keep you connected to your creative sense of self and that self that knows that after a good night's sleep, you're going to wake up the
Mm.
next morning and be able to kind of, in essence, do it all over again, but with a awareness that that life is precious and this is your opportunity to make the most out of your life on a daily basis. I think life is a daily experience. It's not necessarily, it turns into a journey, but it's a daily experience.
I love that. That reminds me, I try to journal, but it's hard for me to always journal.
Yeah, just to get in that
So,
habit, right? Yeah.
mm,
Well,
so
you've heard
sometimes
about morning pages, have you? The Julia Cameron back in the 90s, an author, still very popular. She just says, wake up and write 3 pages. Don't think about it. Just write, 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 write. 3 pages of morning pages. Just write it. Don't even edit it. You don't even have to look at it again, but just get it out of you.
I should try that. Because sometimes self-judgment kind of comes in and it's like grandma era. Oh,
Yeah, well,
that's
that's
the
the idea.
idea.
It's
Like,
like we really do a lot of just auto writing where you just like write and not edit, and you don't even have to go back and read it, right? But just auto writing, which was a kind of a technique that's the surrealists were big proponents of. And it's anyway, there's a lot of
I
magic in
love
auto
that.
writing.
Oh, and prayer, something that I do is just to pray and talk to myself. And sometimes there's like this like self-judgment talk that sometimes it just turns on. And do you experience similar self-judgment talk nowadays? And how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think we all do. I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't, even enlightened Buddhist nuns that don't encounter self-judgment. But I do think that again, like the more that we can, I know this sounds counterintuitive, the more we can stay out of our heads and into our sensory systems, into our our sensory perception, the more we can stay in the present moment, the less likely that character in our heads that likes to yak, yak, yak about anything will not be present. Like we would just spent 3 days with the wild horses, and we literally felt like we had amnesia about what was our life prior to that. Like people were like, I forgot about what I was worrying about beforehand when I came into this weekend. So I think that finding ways that connect you to this, to presence, to really aliveness and presence, you're more likely to shut that character off
I love
without even
that.
really trying. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
yeah,
good. That's the best way. It's the
without
most
trying.
sustainable way. Yeah.
Yeah, playing as well, playing in the most. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting for you to get some friends together and put on a show and see what happens. Seriously. Seriously, like see what that does to that character that you're talking about, that self-judgment character, right?
Yeah.
Because that's all we're really doing, Gianni, is we're just a bunch of friends and artists and adventurers who are just goofing off together. We're just goofing off and we're inviting other people to goof off with us. And guess what? It's actually good for our brains, it's good for our health and well-being. It has all of these wonderful uh, benefits, but that's ultimately what we're doing is we just are making things up and inviting people to come play with us.
It's beautiful. Play together. So as we conclude this podcast, what is your magic, Barbara?
That is my magic. You're gonna stump me with this one.
So many. Which one?
Oh, it's interesting. I was recently talking with a friend, one of the artists that we work with, Marielle Hare, and she was talking about your essence, and she had a way in which she got to what your essence is, and maybe it's what you're saying, your magic. And the two words that came to mind for me when I was working with her on this or playing with her was playful aliveness. I think that
Playful.
playful aliveness. I think that is the perhaps the magic that I contribute to the world and my life and my friends and family on a daily basis is that.
I think the world needs playful aliveness more.
I would agree. I would agree. We're so busy being productive that we feel like we can't play, but ironically, by playing, we're going to be more productive.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you, Barbara. It's such a great conversation with you, and I hope our audience are enjoying our conversation, and think about ways that they can activate their sense of wonder, their playful aliveness.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like in themselves when they're kids, and is there any opportunities for them to bring that back into their adult life? After all, we only have one life, and we wanted to have a good experience.
Yeah, and
in
it
one
doesn't
lifetime.
it doesn't have to be changing everything. Just 10 minutes a day of whatever brings you alive. Start there.
Mm, beautiful.
And that could be cooking, or it could be so many different things. Just spending a few minutes a day doing that, and pretty soon it'll creep up on you, and you'll have a different awareness of your life and the choices you make in your life.
I don't want to end this conversation.
Well, we can continue it in
We
the
can continue
in the green room. Yeah, we'll do that.
in the green room. So
Thank you so
great to
much,
have.
Gianni. Yeah, and thank you
Thank
for
you.
all the magic you're infusing in the world with your curiosity and the way that you bring people in and really go beneath the surface with them. So thank you to you.
Thank you for your encouragement, and I will take this moment and store that in my heart so I can keep my faith as
I will
I
too. I will too.
And for folks who are interested to get connected with Barbara and to learn more about Nomadic School of Wonder, her information is in the show notes below. So definitely we encourage you to connect, to build communities, and to feel each other's wonder and magic. Thank you so much, Barbara.
Thank you, Gianni.